Wolf, tell us, I know that you've learned some pretty interesting things about what is happening there at the White House.
Very interesting, and three big headlines emerging from this background briefing that we had, Brianna. The first one involves what would be a comprehensive immigration bill. We're now told that the president is seriously thinking of introducing legislation. This would be the first time in about 30 years since the Reagan administration. He thinks that a comprehensive immigration bill might be able to get through the Congress. He says it would require a softening on all sides. This administration official says it would not necessarily lead to any immediate pathway to citizenship, but it would potentially lead to legal status for undocumented immigrants here in the United States, where they would be able to work, they would be able to have a job, they would pay taxes, they wouldn't have to worry about getting kicked out of the United States, not necessarily leading to citizenship right away, no path to citizenship, but legal status. That's significant. He also, this official suggests that the dreamers, the children who were brought here as young kids, who have basically been raised here in the United States, they really don't have much to worry about. They will be allowed to stay. He says it's a very sad situation. This official says they will be just fine. Now, we're told by this official that the president is thinking of even including a reference to this new immigration bill that he's considering in his speech tonight before a joint session of Congress, although that has not yet been firmly decided, thinking about it right now, but it may be time for a new comprehensive immigration bill to come forward and to work together, Republicans and Democrats, to see if something can be done. The last time, Brianna, as you remember, that so-called Gang of Eight, it failed, but maybe there is an opportunity, this official says this time. A second headline emerging from this background briefing involves Obamacare. The official says it's very complex finding a new replacement for Obamacare, but the official also says it's very solvable. The current situation, the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, this official says is a disaster. It doesn't work. The official flatly says it will be repealed and replaced. It's going to take some time. The new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Price, has got a lot of opportunities right now to come up with something. He knows a lot about it. So they're pretty confident that some of the disagreements that are emerging, even among Republicans in the House and the Senate, they can be resolved. It will, quote, "It will be so wonderful. I think we can do it. It will be great if everyone can work together." And the hope, of course, is that maybe some Democrats will join in this process as well. A second headline emerging from this background briefing. A third headline I just want to get to involves North Korea right now. This senior administration official saying North Korea right now represents probably the greatest national security threat to the United States, referring to Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader. He may be crazy. He may be very strategic, still unclear, but this official says he can't have a nuclear capability. We got to do something. Now, what is that something? One of the options is working with China, which has a great deal of leverage over North Korea, to see if they can do something. The Chinese, this official says, they are in a position to do something. The Chinese do have power over North Korea. The official basically also confirmed that the North Korean regime of Kim Jong-un was responsible for the assassination in Kuala Lumpur of Kim Jong-un's half-brother, Kim Jong-nam. So North Korea right now emerging as potentially the gravest national security threat to the United States. Three big headlines emerging from this background briefing in advance, Brianna, of the president's address before a joint session of Congress later tonight.
And Wolf, just to revisit, you said that his comprehensive immigration bill that he wants would include a path to legal status, not citizenship, though.
That's
right?
correct. It would not necessarily, it's still a work in progress, it would not necessarily lead to a pathway to immediate citizenship or citizenship, but a lot of the undocumented immigrants here in the United States would have a path to some sort of legal status where they wouldn't have to worry about working in the United States, paying taxes, doing everything else, but not necessarily becoming citizens. He thinks there's an opportunity. This official says the president believes, according to this official, that he might be able to get Democrats and Republicans to consider this. And once again, just to reiterate, it's not necessarily going to be in his speech tonight, but the president, we're told, is thinking about even including a reference to some sort of new legislation that would deal with comprehensive immigration reform.
All right, Wolf Blitzer with some big headlines there from the White House. Thank you so much. And joining me now to discuss this is South Carolina Republican Congressman Mark Sanford. He is also a member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me. And I think you just heard Wolf Blitzer reporting that according to a senior administration official, President Trump would like a comprehensive immigration plan that would include not a pathway to citizenship, but a pathway to legal status. I mean, what do you and also some of the other members of the House Freedom Caucus, what would you think about that?
Well, this is something of breaking news, so I haven't really had a chance to discuss that with him yet.
I guess the concept of a pathway to legal status, because some Republicans say that that is tantamount to amnesty.
Well, and it's a long way from what he talked about in the campaign. What he talked about in the campaign was starting all over, you got to leave, and then we can come back and begin a conversation. So, one, it's a long way from what he talked about in the campaign. Two, I think the devil will be in the details here. Is this a work permit program that we're talking about, wherein you have legal status because of a work permit? I think that's one debate. If it's something of a path to citizenship and seen as amnesty and rewarding people who broke the law in crossing the southern border, I think there will be real problems here in the Congress.
One of the other big headlines out of what he would like to see there is he weighs maybe mentioning a plan or the issuer's desire for this plan tonight during his address to the joint session is to assure dreamers, young people who are brought to the U.S. are undocumented immigrants, but were brought to the U.S. at a young age, have really known no other home, that they're okay, that they shouldn't worry. What do you think about that?
I think that the White House has telegraphed that that's their position. I think there's a consensus view in the House and the Senate in holding the same position. I think that that's sort of a point of non-debate. It may be discussed in his speech tonight, but I don't think that there's going to be change in the way of politics as it relates to the Dreamers.
It's that pathway to legal status that would be of much more concern to you and a number of Republicans.
Correct.
You have introduced a proposal to overhaul Obamacare. Tell me a little bit about this, because one of the things you say in an op-ed you've written is maybe we will repeal Obamacare, but not in its entirety, meaning this is some of what we've seen Congress talking about. Maybe we will repeal, but not replace. It's essential we do both. You are already seeing a schism among Republicans as they confront what is a very difficult challenge of trying to overhaul Obamacare.
And again, the president telegraphed as much, I guess, yesterday or the day before when he said, oh my goodness, this is a lot more complex than I thought. I don't think that's an epiphany to anybody in the Congress. It indeed is complex, and it's something that creates the political energy that we saw in the town halls this last week. People feel passionately about their health care and what comes next. That having been said, I think that, for instance, in South Carolina, premiums went up by 29% last year in the Affordable Care Act plan. We went from 3 carriers down to 1, and something has to change. It's hurting a lot of small businesses. So what Senator Paul and I have done is introduce a bill that's premised on moving us more toward a free market system and empowering the consumer. If you boil the whole bill down, that's what it does. It does have bells and whistles that were part of the Affordable Care Act, but it also makes some awfully significant changes as well.
Those bells and whistles as part of your proposal would be that young people could stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. The protections for pre-existing conditions is
Correct.
Something there. How does this hew with House Speaker Paul Ryan's proposal that he would like to see? And do you support that?
I think that many conservatives have a problem with what they know thus far about what leadership is proposing, in that it entails an entitlement. If you think about, the earned income tax credit, what that means for many conservatives, there's a knee-jerk reaction against it. But that all involves about 25 million people. What we're talking about here is a new entitlement that would entail somewhere between 40 and 50 million people in America, and one that is not means tested. So I think that there are some legitimate questions from the conservative end on what this new program would look like. Are there new taxes? Apparently there are. Is it entail an expansion of Medicaid that hurts states that chose not to expand their programs? I think there are a number of big questions out there on that plan.
What about the role of what is really the crux of Obamacare, which is a tax credit for people who cannot afford health care and qualify based on income, that they would be getting assistance in order to pay for their health insurance?
Yeah, but part of that's premised on continuing to combine employment and health care. So
you want to do away basically with the entire employer-provided health insurance system. I mean, you know that there's going to be major opposition to that. Is that even realistic?
There is, but think about this. It was in 1948, as part of the wage and price controls of World War II, that employment and health care became linked. And so you think about your auto insurance, your home insurance, they're not linked to your employment. It's that anomaly of history that's created a real distortion in the marketplace.
What do you say to a family who says, that's nice, I don't really care about 1947 and this whole idea, and you're talking about different kinds of insurance. I want my insurance.
And you would get it. And what we want is your insurance to follow you. And right now, people will say, I hate my boss. I can't stand my boss. I'm dying to leave my job, but I got to stay there because my benefits are tied to my employment. What we're trying to do is create real portability with regard to the way that health insurance works.
I want to ask you this one more question. When you're talking about how really the kind of insurance plans you would provide, you're saying young people, they don't have that many ailments. They don't need a plan that is required to have all of these provisions. But isn't that how you offset the cost of older, less healthy individuals? How do you then do this?
It would be the case if young people signed up. But what we've seen to the tune of millions of young folks is they said, I don't need all that stuff. I'm not signing up. And so what we do is we say, you know, the, quote, essential benefits that are enumerated by government, why don't people for themselves decide what's essential for them? And the fact is, young people don't have the aches and ailments that we do as we age. Let them come up with a simpler plan, a more basic plan that they pick from the buffet. And then as you age, you can add bells and whistles to that. But if you did that, you'd for the first time create affordable insurance. And what our plan essentially does is it makes legal affordable insurance. That's not the case now with the essential benefits that are enumerated in the Affordable Care Act.
I was a congressional correspondent covering Obamacare, and I have to tell you, I'm having all kinds of deja vu about this. Congressman Mark Sanford, really appreciate it. And I do want to show you some new tape of President Trump's